for one last game. Jason Taylor hasn't, I don't think, made an official announcement yet, but it might be his last. What have those two guys meant to this program over the years?
Well, obviously Brock is, I joke with him, he's like a 20-year vet in the NFL, and, he's given his body up. He's played with a number of injuries and comes back way earlier than, he's a really good illustration of what we want our culture to be like. Commitment to a team, commitment to yourself. And it's been a long time, it's difficult to watch him go because he's a guy you could always rely on. And Jason got to where he is in a little bit different way. But those guys have had a lot of reps and a lot of practices and a lot of games and a lot of experience. And really that's what we hang our hat on in our culture is developing young men, getting them to a point where they can have a lot of success, and then them passing that down to the younger players.
Mike, I asked Luke Fickle this. The uncertainty within your own team in bowl season now and the uncertainty of what you're going to see from the other side, how drastically has that just changed the whole feeling about these things?
It's different. For me to say it's not would be unfair. The preparation is with the uncertainty, as you mentioned, is different than what we've been used to, even the year before. It wasn't, the change wasn't as prominent last year as it was this year. So we're in some uncharted waters, I think all of us are. Scheme-wise, offense, defense, special teams, us in Wisconsin, I can't imagine it's going to change a whole lot. I know they went through more of a change than we did with coaches, but I would say that most of what they're going to try to get accomplished in those three phases are going to be what they've done all year. And personnel changes, sometimes in key areas, is what's making it more different than anything. But concepts should stay pretty much the same as they were all season.
Mike, the NCAA's allowing this not count as red shirt for some guys. You can play guys extra game tomorrow. Is that beneficial? Has that changed your approach to some things for this game, knowing you're not going to burn a red shirt on some kids?
Yeah, so eventually they're going to have to go to 5 years of eligibility because of all the movement with the portal. And when you have movement where guys opt out or for whatever reason are not available to practice and play in these games, you then have potential risk for injury because guys are being overworked. And it's a big picture. For example, in August, we're limited to how many number of players we can bring in when we practice more than we do during the season. We should be able to bring in what our roster is in August. They haven't gotten that changed yet, but so they allowed the extra game to not count for redshirt, in my opinion, because of all the movement with all the teams across the country. And when you lose a certain number of players, you need to find a way to recoup that. And so I think it's beneficial for all of us, and it was a good move on their part, seeing what happened with all the movement. They said we're going to need to do something to help from a practice standpoint, which I'm guessing this is what the answer is. But ultimately, they just need to go to 5 years of eligibility. Everything else has changed, so you might as well go to 5 years. With them having the freedom to move from school to school without restrictions, that would help from a numbers standpoint.
Does it affect you guys much with this game? Do you have many guys who are like?
I think we have 2 young guys, but not a big effect.
With Spencer in the portal, who's kind of filled that leadership void on the offensive side?
We've got a number of guys do a good job. Preston Wilson, Mikulski, Cassidy, JP, Brennan, Braden Johnson. That hadn't really been an issue that I've noticed. I never really thought about it. We were in such a routine that it almost just kind of takes care of itself. Now, those guys need to step up and be able to lead during the game. It'll be interesting to watch that side of it, but I think they'll do. I think they'll be fine.
How has Garrett kind of been being the guy now? How has he kind of handled that transition?
He's done well. He's practiced well. He's had a lot of reps since August, even dating back into the spring, and so he's more comfortable with our system than he was based on getting all the reps. I think he's done fine.
The running back position, you've got 3 guys who will probably kind of rotate in and out. Do you see it as an even split? How do you kind of go about using those guys?
I would say that would be accurate. Then just depending on if somebody gets hot and starts running well.
I know in the past you've said you have a pretty good feel sometimes for who the opponent is going to start at quarterback. With Wisconsin's 2 guys, how have you gone about preparing for that?
Well, we don't have a lot of a feel for them based on the circumstances. But as I said earlier, I think that the concepts are going to stay relatively the same. I'm guessing that they're a little bit in the same situation as us. They'll try to feel their way through as they decide what to do and what direction to go as the game starts.
How do you stop both of their running backs?
Well, they're good players. I mean, you got to get down in there and stop them, and you got to tackle them. When we look back at our defense, we were in position most of the time to stop runs for 6 yards or less. And I'm talking about the ones that ended up being bigger than that. We missed tackles. We were in position, we missed tackles. So it'll be important for us to tackle well, be able to wrap those guys up and get them on the ground.
What have you kind of seen from Lamont in the last few weeks with Mason gone?
Well, he's getting a lot of reps. So now he gets the majority of it based on taking his role and filling his shoes. And so he's practiced well. He's another guy that's been enthusiastic and has run around and practiced well. And so the difficulty of guys that transfer or opt out, whatever you want to call it, is not something that any of us are familiar or comfortable with, but it does give those other guys, as you mentioned, like Lamont, an opportunity to play in a game. So for those guys, it's a pretty cool deal.
I imagine Cam Smith will start where Jabbar was. Do you have an idea of who that third guy will be, a swing corner?
Well, we've got a couple guys, young guys, that we're working in there. Cam will get most of the work, but we've got a couple guys that are rotating in there based on where we're at from a rep standpoint.
And then linebacker, you mentioned Lamont. Is that going to be more of a rotating thing, or is he kind of just going to be the guy that goes?
Nick Martin will play. He'll get work. Donnie will play. Then the other 2 guys will be in. And we'll just see how they play and how it goes.
This used to be the end of